Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Social Z Franchise Happy Hour. We have two amazing entrepreneurs here with us to talk about all things franchising and their businesses. We've got David and Jerry. As always, they're from two different parts of the country and two different complete businesses and franchises. But I'm sure we'll learn a lot from both of them. So welcome, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So to kick us off, we'll ask you to do a rapid-fire intro. David, we'll start with you, if you don't mind, giving us your name, the brands, since you own multiple brands, where you're located, years in business, what your team looks like, and if you want to share any financials, share that with us as well.
Okay. David Yaw, I'm a former oil and gas engineer, left the industry really earlier this year, but I was on my way out 2 years ago, converted to franchising. I own three brands. I own 3 units of 100% chiropractic out of San Diego. I am a franchise consultant, and then I am the Houston area representative for ATAX franchise, which is a new tax prep franchise by John Hewitt, who was the co-founder of Liberty Tax Service and Jackson Hewitt. I am in Spring, Texas, in the North Houston area. I operate nationally and in Canada for parts of my business, but mostly in Houston or North Houston for the chiropractic franchises, which is really the main interest and the main place where I work my time.
And David, what does your teams look like across those brands?
I have an operations manager for the ATAX, the franchise consulting. I am by myself. And then for the chiropractic franchise, I currently have 15 employees in 2 stores. We opened in July with our Kingwood location, and our North Houston location opens in 13 days. So I am buried right now.
Awesome. You're busy. You are busy. Awesome. Well, thanks for going through that, David. And Jerry, for you, if you don't mind, give us the same introduction on your business, who you are, where you're located, and tell us about your business a little bit.
Okay, my name is Jerry Rolison. We opened our business, launched about a year ago, and I purchased the Pillar to Post franchise for Johnston County, North Carolina, and the surrounding areas. I purchased that in late 2019 after I retired from the manufacturing world and decided to move on. However, we weren't able to launch right away because of COVID-19, so it was late May before we were actually launched the business and started trying to get some inspections. Unfortunately, that first year was pretty poor. Working with realtors, it's a personal relationship situation, and that first year we just were not able to get out and meet realtors. Their offices were closed. You only get about 10% of responses off of emails and so on, so the first year was very difficult. This year has come along much better. We're getting out, we're able to get into open houses again, meet realtors, market our business. When I say we, it's my daughter and I. We're the only father-daughter pillar to post or even any home inspection team in North Carolina. There's a lot of husbands and wives, there's a lot of females, a lot of males, but we're the only father-daughter team that we're aware of. And we inspect homes together. Over the next month, I will get her up to Canada to take training with Pillar to Post so that she can actually use their software and go out and do inspections on her own, but right now we do it as a team. We are both licensed in the state of North Carolina, which is required. We're the second toughest state in the nation with regard to home inspections, Texas being number 1. So it took a lot to get the license, but we're enjoying it and looking forward to growing the business.
Great. Thanks for going through that, Jerry, and congratulations on having a venture with your daughter. I'm sure that is enjoyable and gives you guys some good time together. So Pillar to Post is a first service brand, is it not?
It's the largest home inspection company in North America. Each location is independently owned franchise. So I think I'm the second franchise in the Johnston County, Clayton, North Carolina area. Surrounding counties, Wake County has 5 or 6 pillar to post franchisees. Harnett County has, I believe, only 1. And then east of us, it's very small.
Yeah, I think Pillar to Post is owned by First Service Brands, which is I own three franchises, Jerry, and one of them is Certapro Painters, which is also owned by First Service. So I've met a lot of the Pillar to Post guys through the years.
Another franchise called Handyman, something like that. That's
Handyman Connections, yeah.
Yeah, I looked into that before I bought Pillar to Post, but decided I wanted to do this instead.
So Jerry, it sounds like you and your daughter are kind of running everything. You're new. You're having to wear all the hats. Where David has multiple businesses, and he's probably wearing multiple hats too, but has a little bit of a team to support him. So thanks for going through that, guys. The next question for both of you, and Jerry, we'll start with you. So you mentioned you retired after 19 years or longer in the manufacturing business, and I think 17 years or so of that was spent with one company, was it not?
We won't talk about how long I was in manufacturing. I'll tell you how old I am, and I'm on up there. But I've got 30 plus years in the manufacturing. I was a human resource professional. I worked myself from originally an employment manager all the way up to what we call a chief human resource officer or a vice president with an automotive company. I worked with some major corporations, Mondo America, which is an automotive supplier, Eaton Corporation, which a lot of people are familiar with Eaton, and several other large corporations.
Sure. So it came from a corporate background.
Yeah, the people side of the business, handling everything, not just the hiring and the releasing of people, but the legal issues. The law department reported to me as the vice president of Mondo, and I handle a lot of other situations with Mondo. They being a Korean corporation, I was kind of the highest level American for Mondo America Corporation.
And David, tell us a little bit about your background before you got into franchising and owning the multiple businesses that you have today.
I am a master's petroleum engineer, geology degree, and I've got an MBA on the backside. I spent about 30 years doing subsurface technical, and probably the last 15 primarily doing profit and loss optimization analyses on fields all over the United States. I was one of the original unconventional resources people, and that's where I spent most of my time since '05. And so I was in small corporations, big corporations, and really where it benefited me. I had high anxiety in corporate work. It drove me crazy. I was an introvert. I didn't love it. I should have left 12, 13 years ago. I have found so much empowerment owning my own business and being able to deal with people. It can be frustrating, but most of the time it's pretty good.
And David, I have to ask you: are you're knowing where you got your education and where you're living now? Who are you rooting for this weekend? Is it Oklahoma or Texas?
Oklahoma, of course. I got 2 degrees from Oklahoma. I we moved around a lot, but I ended up in Oklahoma for high school, and that's where I went to college.
I live in Destin, Florida now, but I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'm in Fayetteville right now. But we had a good showing against Texas, so I'm sure you guys will also.
I hope. We've underperformed a lot.
Sure. So, David, you mentioned your issues and being uncomfortable and not being real happy in your past careers. When you decided to make a transition, why did you decide to buy a franchise, and what made you land on the franchises that you own now?
It was kind of a fluke. I was contacted randomly by somebody about the time that my consulting job during COVID went to half time. Prices had collapsed, and I wasn't really enjoying the first 3 or 4 weeks of that job. And I thought, well, maybe I'll check into it. Maybe I can get something part-time. And I found, I looked at about 30. And I got down to 2, a pet franchise and the chiropractic. And the pet franchise only had 2 franchisees and no open franchises. And their model was in Highland Park, Dallas, which is a very high demographic area. And I just didn't trust my ability to differentiate myself. So I walked into a 100% chiropractic in Dallas the same day we looked at Pet Bar, which was that franchise. And I was blown away, and I have 20 plus years in chiropractic care, being part of offices, and it was the singular most spectacular presentation I had ever seen in chiropractic. It was transformational. And we walked out, my wife was like, "Oh, so we're going with Pet Bar?" I said, "No, we're not. We're going with 100% chiropractic." And she wanted to buy 1, I bought 3, which was good and bad. And so when we ended up, but the benefit now is that I have 2 stores within 30 minutes of each other, multiple doctors, multiple staff. We're training each other, and we're growing quickly in our ability to be profitable. We were profitable in the first store after 30 days. We are, we're not killing it like we will in another month or 2, but we made about $6,000, I think, the 3rd month. But that should be 4 or 5 times higher by the end of the year. So just in the 1 store. In the 2nd store, if we don't start hot, I'm going to be surprised. So we'll see.
Sure. That's great. Thanks for sharing that, David. And Jerry, you mentioned you looked at least one other brand in Handyman Connections. What made you decide to get into franchising, and why did you land on Pillar to Post?
Well, when I first retired, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. My wife is the one that suggested home inspecting, and that goes back to many years of experience. I started out working with my dad doing odd jobs when I was young, and that's how he filled the income back in those days. And so he was a jack of all trades, worked everywhere. I learned that. Then in around 2000, I finally decided to actually open a business. My son and I and one other individual opened a design and residential construction company in southern Alabama. I was building homes on the Gulf Coast, along Orange Beach, all the way over to the peninsula there. And we did that up until the financial boom came along, and that kind of killed the residential market. We couldn't give land away, So we sat on that for a few years. Finally, I sold and got out of that. In 2015, we moved up here to North Carolina. And I retired in 2019, thinking about a number of things, but my wife thought that with my background as a do-it-yourselfer, as a design residential contractor, why not look into home inspections? A little easier on me than going back through and being a residential contractor again. That is a headache. There is a lot of money in it, but it's a headache. It takes a lot of effort. This is something I felt like I could get into, build it with my daughter, retire a second time, pass this business along to her, and we can continue to grow it. I hope to have 7 or 8 other employees over the next 5 years, and turn this over to her, and then I'll just sit back, make a little money on the side, and let her run the business, and we'll have inspectors out in the field. it's a pretty lucrative business. There's some guys in this business doing well over $3-4 million a year in sales. So, and you can do that with not a large staff. And you know, you keep it under 15 people. There's a lot of things you avoid in terms of taxes and government issues and things like that. Yet, and you can still make a very, very good living. So, pillar to post seems to be ideal, being in home inspection, and pillar to post being the largest franchise for home inspections in North America. So, worked well with me.
Absolutely. So, this is for both of you gentlemen, and it's open for conversation. But Jerry, obviously you had a background in being an entrepreneur, but also in the corporate world. And David, obviously you've got an extensive background and probably are smarter than the average bear. What made you decide going the franchise route versus just doing your own business and doing your own thing from day one?
I don't have I was a real estate agent for a while, and I was with my wife, and I was a small business agent, and they don't really teach you how to be an agent. You have to teach yourself on your own, and it's frustrating, and I just didn't love it. I didn't love owning my own business in that respect, and I would have formed my own business if I wanted to, but if I found the exceptional program and methodology in a service, I was going to go with it. And I can manage from my home. I can get great cash flow, and I'm going to have the time of my life. It had to be that way. I didn't want to sink. I've seen too many people sink themselves in franchises where they're buying a job, essentially. And, some franchises are like that. I tend to want to tell people to get into something that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be a hobby. You don't have to be too passionate about it, but you got to be able to sell it. Something, if you want to deal with employees, do that. If you don't work by yourself. There's plenty of one-man franchises that you can do too that are cheaper, and some very, very lucrative. But if you want to be the best you can be, find something that fits your personality, your skills, your finances, obviously, your cash flow needs, and what you want to do 5 to 10 years down the line.
And Jerry, what about you? I mean, why did you decide to buy a pillar to post versus just going and being your own home inspector?
Well, there's a lot of home inspectors out there, and there are a lot of them that are individuals. But I think pillar to post provides a lot more on the front end in terms of marketing, the name, the software. These are all things that if I started on my own, then I've got to purchase a software package. I got to decide what kind of package it's going to be. I've got to come up with a website and how I'm going to market myself and things of that. Pillar Post has already done all that, and they've been highly successful at it. So rather than spending a year going through and just trying to get all that accomplished, I can hit the road running with pillar to post. And I think if COVID had not hit us, we would be way ahead of the game. The guys that started a couple of years before me, they're doing remarkable business, extremely good business. And I know a guy in the county below me that he does 600-700 inspections a year, and that's a lot of inspections. He's grown very quickly, but it's having that presence, that knowledge. Pillar to Post has been here for 25 plus years. One of our executives, the chief, I guess he's the chief operating officer, got his start right here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And he sold his business to another individual who's still here and still working that business today. But with that background and knowledge, it gave me a year or two advantage getting into the market to get started, and having that, and they support us greatly with the information, the technology. They stay on top of the technology. I mean, we have the IT department, we have the marketing department, we have all these things to help support us that as an individual, you got to do it on your own. And I thought long and hard about doing that, but having been in business and recognizing that, I saw the value in bringing it in through a franchise versus trying to do some things that aren't my skills. Inspecting a home, understanding the house, I can do that. I know all about a home. And I mean, I've designed them, I've built them. But the finance, the marketing, the sales, all those other things that pillar to post could bring to the table that I'm not an expert in. And I think that provides me a great advantage in the market over those individuals that are doing it on their own.
You know, for me, it's, you know, I knew how to run a business, but, you know, I own 3 brands now. One's a painting franchise, one's a sign franchise, and one's a fencing. I didn't know anything about those individual industries before I bought the franchise, right? And so I could manage the business part, but I needed the industry, where, Jerry, you knew the industry, but, you know, having some of the business support is probably where you got the value out of the franchise model, right? So it's different for everybody, but it's certainly a shorter path to success and profitability in my mind. David, you know, obviously, you know, you had an array of background, but obviously, you know, with your education and everything, you're a very smart guy. What are the things that you've learned that you're not good at as a business owner so far?
Predicting how an employee is going to be from an interview. I pulled the trigger on 3 different doctors before this, and I was reliant on kind of my franchise and on some recruiters before I started doing my own backdoor recruiting. And I lost 3, and I trained 2 of them, and, you know, dropped some stuff. But and dealing, obviously today, I promoted a 27-year-old as office manager over a 47-year-old who had been with me the longest, been with me for 3 months, but she thought it was showing up was enough. That's not. The other girl had been here 2 weeks and was already trying to tell us how to get better through training and doing extra training. It was a no-brainer. So losing her and trying to handle that employee, that's what I say, most of my job is employee management. The franchise does most of the stuff. It's a semi-absentee. So I mean, I'm responsible for everybody, and I'm in the store and I'm talking to everybody. But yeah, employee management is still something I'm learning. But all this high level education hasn't really done anything for me. It was business experience, being able to read a profit and loss, learning how to optimize, and being the boss that I wanted when I was in corporate. That was the biggest change. So you can do this without a lot of formal education, but you got to have a drive to do it. It got to be passionate.
So Jerry, what David is learning is the difficulties of, you know, dealing with people, which sounds like was your background for a lot of years. You know, what's the thing that you found that you're not good at, or that's your challenge right now as a business owner?
Real simple. Working from home. I'm very accustomed to getting up at 5:30 in the morning, getting dressed, and going off to an office and dealing with business. And you know, when you're at an office and you're away from the home, and I'm dealing with 1,000 employees or more or whatever, to me that was simpler than getting up in the morning and going upstairs and trying to go to work, do cold calling to realtors, sit here and look at emails and figure out how I'm going to market myself, and at the same time not get tangled up in the family's day-to-day things that are distracting. So working from home is not as easy as I would have thought it would have been. A lot of people like to do it. A lot of people enjoy it. I enjoy having my own business, so to speak, but it has its challenges coming up here, being by myself. I can't walk down the hall and meet a realtor and things like that. I've got to cold call them. I've got to set up appointments. I got to get out there and beat the bushes, and that takes a whole lot different motivation, enthusiasm, and so on than getting up and going to work. And trust me, I enjoyed that. I made extremely good money doing it. But this has its own challenges, and I'm learning quite a bit from that.
It comes with positives and negatives. You can set your own schedule, and you can do the things you want to do when you want to do it, but there's also no one holding you accountable if you don't do those things. The only thing holding you accountable is the profit and loss in your bank account, right? Like you're going to know if you didn't do those cold calls and you didn't get up and go meet realtors, you're going to notice it when it comes time to pay the bills, right? So it's a different set of challenges, as you said, Jerry. To wrap us up here, guys, David, I'm going to ask you, what for the next 90 days going in as we start the fourth quarter here, what are you focused on your business to make the fourth quarter in 2022 a success?
A strong team, replacing anybody I need to replace, building rapport among the staff. That's the guiding to everything, getting the franchise involved, where there are shortcomings, and hopefully doubling our gross revenue in the first store and starting strong in the second. I would like to be at 80,000 gross between, and that's not between both stores, that's between each. I'm at 55, 60 right now, so that's very doable in any ramp up. So
that'd be great, absolutely. Jerry, what about you? What are you spending the next 90 days on to set yourself up for success?
Well, we're going into the slow season. It starts kind of slowing down towards December, and then it's pretty slow in January, February. So we got to focus on getting to meet more and more realtors, getting our name out there, actually getting out and going to the offices, going to open houses, trying to set up lunch and learns and other ways to meet our customers. 80% of our business is going to come through the realtors. So we've got to concentrate on how do we market to them, how do we reach them, and how do we do it today versus how it was done 2 or 3 years ago. It's a whole new market. It's not what it was. You go into a real estate office today, there's an agent sitting there, but it's just the agent of the day. Where are the other 30 agents that you need to meet, and how do you meet those other 30? The market is kind of unique in that here in North Carolina we have buyers and sellers agents. I see all the sellers agents because they're the ones that post the houses for sale. When it goes under contract, I need to know who the buyer agent is because that's who orders the home inspection. But the buyer's agent isn't posted on any signs. So you really have to dig, you have to get out there, build a reputation, and then get the referrals and ask for the referrals. And I, how do I put myself out there in the virtual world that you used not to have to do? And that's been a struggle for me. It's something different for me, but we're learning, we're getting better at it. I attend more functions than I used to, so that's what we got to continue to focus on.
In our businesses, we have our seasons. We call them hunting and farming, and it sounds like you're going into the farming season, Jerry. So come spring, you can reap some of the benefits of what you're sowing now, right? So David and Jerry, thank you so much again for taking your time with us this evening. We really appreciate it. A lot of valuable insight, and appreciate both your knowledge and backgrounds. And to everyone listening, we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to hear Jerry and David's story, and we hope you join us again next time on the Social Z Happy Hour. Thank you.